Welcome to BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT Debates. I'm Brian Muntzman, Managing Editor at BCS, and today we're looking at some more issues around the cloud. We know there are several levels of the cloud: platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. And today we want to have a little look at the view that a user would have, whether they be in the enterprise environment or indeed at home, on that last layer, the software as a service, the thing that people interact with. To discuss that with me today, I have around the table Vincent Franceschini from Hitachi Data Systems. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, Ryan.
I have Simon Hansford from Attenda. Hello, Simon.
Good morning.
And Justin Pirry from Mimecast. Hello, Justin.
Hi.
Now, let's just start with a general question, gentlemen, if we can. What is it that's going to make the software as a service level effective for users? Perhaps we could think about the corporate environment to start with.
I think the most important thing to understand is what type of data are we actually talking about? Is it really sensitive data, or is it something that is not that commercially sensitive? So the type of due diligence you need to do on the cloud is entirely dependent on the type of data you're talking about. So I think there are scales of due diligence. Secondly, the drivers of the cloud, I think, are not just about cost. I think it's primarily driven by the fact that IT has become very brittle. There's a real lack of agility in the IT space. On-premise software, IT departments are really unresponsive to users. Users are looking for ways to get their job done better. And often using cloud services, they're able to do that. So
I think that's possibly where the security argument is weak, though, because for many users it's about functionality, and that's all their primary consideration.
Absolutely.
So that sales manager that's going to go out and put Salesforce.com into his team because IT are too slow for him is not sitting there thinking, is this a secure application?
Absolutely.
Yeah? He's thinking about, it's a functionality I need, a cost point I need, and I can get it now.
And Salesforce is fine because it's got a big heritage, a lot of funding, millions of users, over $1 billion of revenue. So they've done a lot of due diligence on their security. But the fact remains that you've got to look at what type of data it is, and that before you do due diligence on a vendor.
I totally agree. I think I'm just making the point that often the business user is not thinking of security.
Of course not.
It's the IT user that comes in later and finds out, oh, I didn't know that department were using it. Hang on, this is insecure. What are we doing?
Usually security is not on the top of the list until there is a real concern, unless they got burnt. Unless they got burnt in the past, absolutely right.
So there's some really interesting developments happening at the moment. Ray Wang from Altimeter Group was talking about it yesterday, saying that people have to have a new perspective on procuring cloud services. They've got to understand what it actually means to the business in terms of data and business value. Yes. So really understand the business drivers of cloud computing and SaaS in particular, and then train procurement and the business to understand how to procure those applications. Because procurement is totally under-resourced and under-prepared at the moment to procure SaaS solutions. They don't understand how to do due diligence on a SaaS vendor.
You're saying that procurement actually, even for these kind of services, shouldn't sit with the IT department at all?
Absolutely. But I think procurement needs to really understand how cloud works, what the key drivers are, and I think IT should enable procurement to procure the right tools for the business.
I agree, although again, I think you've got to recognise there's such a wide range of software as a service applications out there. So at one end it could be the sales manager buying Salesforce on his credit card. Procurement aren't even involved. The other end it could be the IT group that are buying their mail cleaning filtering, where very much it will tend to go through a classic procurement cycle. So again, we've got to recognise there's different applications.
So what we're saying here is that cloud is putting pressure on the traditional licensing model. We've all been using. It's not the first time in IT that the word licensing comes back on the table, because as soon as we change how things are put together in the data center and in the branches out there, we look at licensing as being the issue. I remember when grid computing came around, especially in the financial organizations where grid was deployed initially, everybody was scratching their heads around because trying to find a way of making sense out of the licensing model. If I'm in a position where I can deploy dynamically resources, what's going to be the basis of me charging for using the resource in the first place? And by the way, the same applies not only for the SaaS, but for the PaaS and for the IaaS as well.
Absolutely.
So for the infrastructure. So it's easier when you deal with the virtualization of a physical asset than with licenses, but the problem in itself remains the same across the board. And then obviously the problem becomes exacerbated when you look at software. So it is a challenge. And I agree about the security point. It becomes a real challenge once you face a real issue. However, with enterprises looking into regulatory compliance for the past decade or so, with the need to deal with multiple geographies, with different rules and boundaries, legal boundaries that you have to deal with, I think more and more enterprises are used to take those considerations into account early in the game, but there's still a lot of things to review in the first place.
I think it will probably need to start with company policies. Most enterprises have got a policy on internet usage, on security. I doubt today there is embedded in a company policy who authorises and approves how software as a service is procured and used.
Yeah, because there's a tension there, isn't it? Using your example of the sales manager who sees a solution in Salesforce and goes for it because he's got a job to do, and this is the best way of doing it, but the IT department
not even aware.
Perhaps wants central control of everything, but that's just not accounted for in policy, is it?
Policy is one thing, but executing and enforcing it is another one, and the same applies to security. So when we look at cloud, whether it's SaaS, but SaaS in particular, given that you're dealing with potentially a technology layer that has a direct connection with the business, when you put something in place, you've got to be able to audit, monitor, that whatever is happening inside your organization complies with whatever rules you set up in the first place.
And that's exactly why I think we need to shift the focus about procuring SaaS to procurement so that IT can influence but doesn't necessarily hamper that process. Because those guys, IT managers are overstretched. Their departments are absolutely at breaking point a lot of the time, whether they admit it or not. These guys are the heroes powering a lot of companies. And
most of them are BCS members. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, these guys are heroes. I ran a VAR for 7 years, so I had 26 engineers at one point, and those guys were heroes. They were up all night, recovering Exchange databases, recovering backups. These guys they don't have the time often to think about that sales manager's request for Salesforce or whatever. So we need to enable companies to take advantage of cloud in a safe, secure, scalable, compliant way. And that's why I think there's a shift to maybe thinking about procurement getting involved.
I think indirectly you're pointing at something that is interesting in the data center to enable what you're talking about. For a long time in data centers, we've had very distinct, I would say, IT domains. You had the computer guys, you had the application guys, you had the network guys, and you had the storage guys. And, it was a little bit like get off my land as soon as you were trying to put things together,
Get off my cloud.
Get off my cloud. There you go. But cloud is, because of the kind of efficiencies we're talking about for procurement and for the rest of IT, I think IT has been asked to align the management of those domains together and potentially coordinate them in a very efficient fashion, in a very integrated fashion, unlike what has been done for the past decades in many data centers. Some ITs have already gone ahead and have already gone through those alignment cycles, and it takes time to be able to have an IT organization capable to deal with, I need to do this activity, and to support this activity I need this software. Do the rest. It sounds like a very simple...
Kind of interpreting what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's not about the technology, it's about the process.
It's about the process.
That's what all good IT organisations are good process people.
They should be, but the challenge is now they have to agree about processes that are becoming bigger and more end-to-end in many respects, so that IT becomes a service for the business. It sounds like, oh my God, what a novel idea. That's what we've been trying to do. That's something that we've been trying to do for the past few decades. But now we've got to such a level of maturity across technology layers, that we start to be able to do some of that in reality. And that's what the cloud story is all about, is that now we start to be in a position to start to deliver on those things. It's not perfect, there's plenty of concerns, but such alignment and such capability to respond dynamically to demand is becoming more and more of a true story. And that's the excitement around cloud.